Alright, we should be live. We're back. We're working on Ygra. Ygra of all. Here it is. In case you're starting with part 11. Up. So, we are currently at 116 spells. I took a couple days off, unsurprisingly, for the pre-release. And probably more time than that. I don't think I've streamed anything magic related since like Wednesday. I was doing all of my various pre-release prep, watching videos and everything. Um, so got second, first, and third in the three events I wound up participating in. We did not get people in the morning at the one place that barely has anybody show up anymore. So wound up not doing anything with that one, but we did do the two events at the other place that I've been trying to draft at and didn't get product in for like months at a time for drafting. So that was rough. But they still have a pre-release crowd at least, so got to do the two events there. So I got second and then first. And first place one was a lot of fun because I had a really good deck and I wound up killing 3 out of the what is it? Let's see. I wound up beating a deck with Zamone, a deck with the Wanderer, and a deck with Tyvar in order to secure my victory. So I have defeated 3 out of the 5 people that showed up to save Nashi. Don't worry, Nashi, I will save you myself. So, good times all around. That was with a very aggressive red-white deck with a ton of removal. I got to play with the hover ship, the UFO that abducts a creature with 5 or less toughness, and if it dies, they get a manifest instead of the creature back. I had that one, and I had the 2/2 first strike on your turn. When opponent draws a card, they take a damage. So, all in all, good times were had for me. Just an absolute ton of removal. I actually was not running 2 Trapped in the Screens in the main deck. I did board them in against certain opponents who did not show enough enchantment removal. But I already had Sheltered by Ghosts, and I didn't want to be super vulnerable to enchantment removal. Like, you kill my enchantment, you get your guy back type of deal. So I only boarded those in. Yeah, I had Sheltered by Ghosts, I had the Hovercraft, I had Dragonfire, the Exercise, the Artifact Enchantment or Creature with Power 4 or greater sorcery. I know I had other stuff, but it's been a long weekend. Anyway, we're back. We're working on Ygra. That's my tournament report. That's all you're getting. The third event I did black red, and I'm wondering if I could have gone blue red or blue black because I had 2 of the Silent Hall creepers in blue. But if I went black blue, I had no top end. If I went red blue, all my removal aside from like 1 Scorching Dragonfire was like 5 drops. And like the black had the low end, the red had the top end, and the blue was mostly in the middle except for like the 2 Hall Creepers. So I did want to try the Hall Creepers out together though, because if you can get 2 of them, they just keep copying each other and getting a new set of their abilities. So that would have been interesting. Also, the number of times I ran into and had 2 of the 2/4 when this creature attacks another creature gains indestructible, where I ran into a pair of those. That is absurd and limited. Just gonna attack you with 2 indestructible 3/4s every turn. I did actually manage to beat that at one point. I assembled the high toughness creatures and the removal spells, and eventually the removal spells, but at first just the high toughness creatures so that they couldn't just keep attacking me freely with all their stuff. Yeah, that was the one I got second in, and I had like green black, I believe. I definitely had green for the large bodies and the 3/2 that manifests when it survives. And I believe the other color I had was black. I definitely had green because I had Balustrade Worm. Balustrade Worm is dumb. Also, what I lost to in the when I got third was getting run over by Balustrade Worm, among other things. Hey, anyway, back to our 115 card or 116 card deck that needs to lose 46 of its cards. And I love all of my children right now. Ygra kind of has to stay. I really want to keep the Grim Feast because we'll gain so much life off of our opponent's creatures dying. We have so many mass, like, creature removal that keeps my Ygra around, thanks to all the artifact hate, that I can't imagine not wanting Grim Feast in this deck. This is going to be one of those, I need like 10 more cuts, and it finally comes off the list. But I can't cut it this early into the thing. I cut other stuff first. Just Deeds, just a Hypnotist, Lissa, Pentavis, Witness, Reach, Eve, Avra, Damnation. Maybe it is Bitter Blossom. We keep the one that makes mana, the Awakening Zone, but I think we lose Bitter Blossom. It's only 1 token per turn cycle. I can do much better than that with some of my other stuff that's going on. Keep the Awakening Zone because at least it's also ramping us a little bit each turn. Yeah, we decided to keep Awakening Zone over one of the other get a single land cards because we'll just keep making an 0/1 each turn that it lives, and that will be the 1 mana I would have had, and if I don't sacrifice them immediately, it actually lets me build up a little bank of mana dorks that I can sacrifice. Sanguinate, Viridian Revel, Erosion has to stay. Fangren Marauder basically has to stay. That thing is like glued to this deck at this point. Beast Within, Blood Artist, Erebos. I am wondering if we can cut the Defiant Bloodlord. It's a 7-drop. And it's a creature. The problem is more that it's a creature than anything else. Like, at least the Enduring Tenacity, when it dies, comes back as an enchantment, so the first time I destroy all artifacts while it and Ygra are out, it'll be fine. That being said, I don't know if I have enough when I gain life opponents lose life cards if I cut the Defiant Bloodlord. Because I think I only have like 5 at this point. Zulaport Cutthroat, Benchen, Manglehorn, Razaketh. Maybe there's a chance I cut Razaketh because I don't have the mana producing sacrifice outlets. Like, if I sacrifice creatures the turn I play Razaketh, I probably set up lethal next turn, but I might not have it because I spent all my mana. The problem with that is that we have cards like Pattern of Rebirth where we can just put Razaketh into play and suddenly win the game. I guess maybe if I cut Pattern of Rebirth, I can cut Razaketh. Also, Pattern is another way to cheat something like the Defiant Bloodlord into play. Though I probably would grab Enduring Tenacity the first time. Just because it's more resilient. I don't want to grab the Bloodlord and then sweep him away, and then I don't get the benefit of gaining all the life. That's, I think, the biggest problem is that sometimes I will gain a ton of life from killing everything, and the Bloodlord will have already been gone, because first I have to kill everything, then I gain all of the life for it dying. Excuse me. Pitiless Plunder, Ravenous Cabra, Assassin's Trophy, Citadel, Casualties of War. I don't know, maybe I don't need the Oathsworn Vampire. We have the Miner who triggers... The Miner only triggers, though, when I target the opponent. So we need one of the ones that specifically says target opponent loses life and I gain life, or when I gain life, target opponent loses that much life, which I suppose most of them are. I feel like a few more of them for when a creature dies, I gain life and opponents lose life aren't targeted. They're each opponent because they care about my creatures. It's only the Blood Artist. Any of the ones that when I gain life, opponents lose that much life do target, so that would still be a crime for the Miner. The other downside is that the Miner has to be, like we have to have the black when it triggers. But on the other hand, that means we can get the Miner back on other players' turns if it comes up. Like, I don't know that I need the Miner, the Skeleton, and the Vampire all at the same time. So maybe we lose the Oathsworn Vampire. Like, we gain life very easily, so we can cast this from our graveyard, but the Skeleton, it's half the size of it, but it also doesn't require anything. Like, I can spend that 2 mana to get the creature back regardless, so... Yeah, I suppose we can afford to lose one of them. It is nice with the things that care when my non-token creatures die, but I think I'm cutting... Like, we only have Open the Graves and the Blight Mound left, and I think I lose the Open the Graves. Like, Open the Graves almost feels win more at that point. Like, oh no, my creatures are dying, and you're hemorrhaging damage, and my commander is growing, and I'm drawing cards and doing other stuff, and by the way, I'm making, like, fresh zombies to replace them all at the same time. It's like, that's probably a bit over the top, and I can cut the 5-drop enchantment that does that. The pests are slightly better anyway, because they give me more life gain triggers. Like, the zombies are better when they're physically in play, because they're 2/2s, but the pests are better if I'm just using them as sacrifice fodder. So... It's possible we don't even need that. Like, we have Confectioner and Camellia. They're just doing a better job at that. Also, it's possible I cut Tegrid. Like, Tegrid is another win more card, or, like, win parallel to my commander and what it's doing, rather than being on the same path. I've talked about this in a couple other of these videos. The idea that it's going in the same direction, but it's not doing the same thing that the rest of the deck cares about. Like, we're making our opponents lose creatures through sacrifice by having our own creatures die, which we're going to do anyway. The fact that I would get to steal their creatures with Tegrid is, on the one hand, nice, on the other hand, not needed. You know, if I'm already killing all of their creatures, I probably don't need their creatures back unless I needed more sacrifice fodder to get all of their creatures off the board. And I think we have more than enough ways to both generate creatures and kill creatures that shouldn't be too much of an issue. So while Tegrid is insanely powerful and works very well with the deck, it's not actually on topic with what the rest of the deck is trying to do. Like, Tegrid piggybacks off of our removal, piggybacking off of our ability to sacrifice whatever we have in play at any given point in time. So, he's kind of, or she's kind of 2 degrees separated from the main focus of the deck at that point. Like, don't get me wrong, if you want to jam Tegrid in your deck, I think it's insanely powerful and it would be fine to put it in here. Do we actually need Shelly while we're on the subject of powerful cards that aren't exactly what the deck needs? Like, maybe not? Don't need Shelly and her apocalyptic ways. She's a lot closer to being on topic than Tegrid is, because we're trying to win the game by us gaining life causes the opponent all kinds of headaches. So, gaining life every time I draw a card is definitely relevant. But out of all of the things, I'm losing creatures way more often than I'm drawing cards. Maybe we don't need Sheoldred. Yeah, I went over the list before I started, so I'd have some idea of what was still on it, so we wouldn't have to just go through the list. Also, Drivnod is a possible cut. Drivnod, we need to have all the other stuff going on first, and then Drivnod doubles up anything we have going on. So, if we cut things that Drivnod would trigger, we're making Drivnod worse while keeping it in the deck because we have the other things going on. Like, it's nice that when the food creatures die, Ygra gets extra counters, and it's nice that we drain them a little bit more each time one of our creatures dies, but I think end of the day, Drivnod, we need a bunch of other things going on in order for Drivnod to not feel like a win more card. And if we have too much going on, then he flips back over and becomes a win more card because he's just doubling up everything that we were already taking advantage of, so I don't know. Like, if we were all in on the Aristocrats plan instead of just the life gain causes opponents to lose life strategy, like if we had ignored those, if we had cut all of those things and we had focused more on the my creature dies, you lose a life, I gain a life, so I'm going to be sacrificing creatures, then I probably need to keep Drivnod. Because a lot of those pings are pretty weak. Like, the life gain ones we can hit for huge amounts of damage with the ones that care about how much life I gain, not just that I gain life. So, we need the aristocrat stuff less, but we don't cut it entirely. So, I think at that point, Drivnod just isn't what we need. Very tempted to cut Greta, but we don't have a ton of card draw, so... Vampire Assassin's probably too good, or Vampire Assassin, Vein Ripper, sorry, creature type, not name. Vein Ripper's probably too good, making each opponent lose 2 life and I gain 2 life. Basically, it's 2 Lilliport Cutthroats in a trench coat attached to a 6/5 flying body, so yeah, way too much good stuff going on, and like everything else, it gets swept away if I do the Artifact Wraths, but that's just kind of how the deck works. At the very least, it will see everything die. Unlike the ones that need to be in play when I gain life in order to do the thing, at least Vein Ripper will see itself and every other creature that got killed die, and be able to deal the 2 damage per creature. Assuming Vein Ripper doesn't explode before the spell resolves. Like, as long as it gets killed by the same thing that's killing everything else. Definitely keeping Camellia, keeping Heaped Harvest, Season of Gathering, Ygra. Probably shouldn't cut Ygra, Enduring Tenacity. Bond. Cultivate. There's the skeleton. Viscera Seer. I do think we lose Open the Graves. I think that one's kind of medium right now. Like I said, either it's win more because I'm getting the bodies for sacrificing the things anyway, and I'm just churning through lots of non-token bodies at that point. The only upside to Open the Graves is if somebody else wraths the board and I lose all my creatures, I get a bunch of tokens to make up for that, but what the Blight Mound is for. I think Blight Mound's doing it better, and I don't have room for everything, so. Also possible we could lose the Manufactor. I do make food tokens, but I actually only have a handful of actual food makers. I have a few treasure makers too. I have like the Plunderer. No natural clue makers though, so that one's never triggered. But we have the Plunderer to make treasure, and I forget if we have like anything else that does that. The problem is it still works pretty well with like the Shire, the vending machine. Oh right, we make treasures off of the Warren Soul Trader too. Yeah, okay. I guess the weird thing is that we don't actually have a way to comfortably sacrifice artifacts. Like we don't have a Croc Clan Ironworks or anything where I can turn my artifacts into resources, because that's mostly a red thing. So, while I might be able to make all of this extra food, it still costs mana in order to get rid of it. Unless we have, like, well, it still costs mana, but we would have, like, Greta to sacrifice it, so that's cheaper. Oh no, it's the same amount of mana. It's black and 1 to sacrifice it to draw a card. And it's 2 tap, sacrifice it to gain 3, so yeah, it's not actually helping. Like, we got rid of Peregrine Took and Savvy Hunter. I wonder if then I don't want Took instead of Greta. Like, maybe that's a possibility. It depends. If I can get rid of things like the Academy Manufactor, if I decide I don't need it, then we don't need. Then we ease up on the token production enough that maybe we want Peregrine instead of Greta. That would let us get rid of Manufactor. I still don't want to get rid of too many of the other things that are making the tokens, though, because we do still need some amount of tokens. Well, maybe Propagator Drone doesn't need to be here anymore. Yeah, we got rid of the Jade Mage and kept the drone, because the drone would let the tokens be like 2/2s or even 3/3s potentially. Like, most of them are 1/1s. Obviously this one's making 0/1s and they be power less than their toughness, but still not impossible to get them up to like to get all of our 1/1s up to like 2/2s and 3/3s, but yeah. Yeah, we can probably get rid of that one now. In the black market, connections is our card draw. And ways to make other tokens, which would then trigger all of our other stuff. Deluge, Judgment. So now the only thing I have that really cares about non-token creatures specifically is Blight Mound. I'm wondering if we don't need the Thieving Amalgam anymore. We have Witherbloom herself to make a creature every upkeep. There's also a 7-drop. The thing is aside from the things that the amalgam is stealing, we're never going to trigger the lose two, gain two aspect of it. Yeah, we can probably lose thieving amalgam. I need cuts, and it's not as good. Still kind of want to keep Guillaume being able to sacrifice a food to give Ygra indestructible. Seems obscene in this deck. Like, worst case scenario, Ygra can literally eat the chef. Light Mound I want to keep. I like the Coven and the other witch that we have that can get back our dead creatures every time we gain life. We are capable of gaining a lot of life. Maybe we lose the Prowling Geist Catcher. It is decently powerful in this deck. Being able to sacrifice all of my stuff and then get it back. But while we can sacrifice things, we don't have. We have like 3 or 4 things that let me sacrifice creatures for free. And the rest of it is like requires mana. It is nice that this thing doesn't have to die to get my stuff back. It just has to leave the battlefield somehow. Yeah, maybe it's a bit on the win more side. Yeah, Scion just seems too good. As long as one player is vulnerable, the 5/5s get to rumble at everybody, and can't really let them through while Ygra's in play, because if you're not blocking, I get to choose what I'm killing, so basically you have to block. And if you don't have like a 6 toughness or higher creature, then you're getting abyssed by this thing. Until somebody finally has a like good blocking position where they can kill the original. Like, everybody has to have a good blocking position where they can kill the original for its attack not to be good. I don't think the microphone picked that up, but apparently I am hungry. Yeah, I'm going into work super early, so I'm going to have lunch there. First, need to cut a bunch of stuff. Still love the Cyberman squad with this deck. Everything that I said about the Sign of Calamity becomes true of all of my non-Ygra creatures. And that gets way too out of hand way too quickly. Especially things like the Alpha Death Claw and um, Ravenous Chupacabra and the 3/4 that I kill an artifact or enchantment and then each of my opponents chooses artifacts and enchantments I don't have. Yeah. Yeah, we get any of that rolling. Oh, it's right there. It's Druid of Purification. Get any of that rolling and we do a ton of damage. Alright, so if I copy the Witch of the Moors real quick, that put 10 on the list, so we had 9. So brings us down to 107. All. Alright. Have down here. These are our sack outlets, so freebies. Technically Bobble Saga, Warren Soul Trader, Yawgmoth is just pay a life, Viscera Seer, Sadistic Hypnotist. Technically Razaketh, but we have to get to 8 mana for him to be a free sack outlet, so Doesn't feel very free. Maybe we can lose the Viscera Seer. Like, it's super small. The Scry is nice, but the other resources we're getting from the sacrifices are, for the most part, nicer. Like, Dina's not really, but Dina's also a gain life, lose life effect. So, while boosting her power is not better than scrying one or surveilling one, I think it's a scry. Yeah, it's a scry for Cersei. Um, it does do double duty at that point. This is giving Ygra evasion. It's minus Morgul, Talon, Season, the Shadow Spear. And the Shadow Spear especially giving Ygra lifelink seems too good to cut. Also taking away Hexproof and Indestructible is always a nice thing to have access to. My card draw. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 card draw. Maybe we can lose the Lily. Lily is the only one that's still here that cares that my stuff dies, I get to draw a card. We cut all of the other ones that do that. We have ways to sacrifice the creature to draw a card, but not things that say when I sacrifice a creature or when my creature dies, I draw a card. Got all of those, so fine to keep her. There are gonna be times when she's not at her best because she's a 6-drop and she's a planeswalker, which means we have to be able to uptick her in order to be able to minus her again. Yeah, for right now, those can stay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ramp spells. We have 10 ramp and 10 card draw, so a third of our deck is utility right now. Wonder we're having so much trouble cutting stuff. Maybe we don't need the Witch of the Moors. We already have the Vane Witch Coven, and then we have what's its name? Eternal Witness. Maybe the Witch of the Moors. Because she's still only one creature, and it's still only my end of turn. So maybe that's not good enough. Like, it's only one creature that she's killing because it's on, like, per turn cycle. And that's a little slow and clunky, and we can kill creatures very easily with all of our other stuff anyway, so the fact that she also gets back a dead creature is not essential. I don't know, maybe Savra's not good enough. The problem is that then we only have Dictate and Grave Pact and all of the rest of our removal, which is not, it sounds. I'm making it sound way worse than it is because we have a ton of catch-all removal. Like, creatures are not living just because we lose Savra. The biggest problem with her is that if the creature isn't also green, we're losing 2 life in order to make everybody lose a creature, and we can chunk our life total pretty quickly that way if we need to kill things. Which, let's be honest, if we need to kill things that badly, we probably need to kill things that badly. But we need to have a steady supply of specifically black creatures for that to work. Otherwise, she's not killing any of our opponent's stuff, and if they're not green, we're losing. Like, I think it's more important that they're black and that we're making the opponents lose creatures than that they be green and we get to gain the life back. I mean, ideally, we're gaining life back anyway for our thing dying, regardless of if we pay the life or not. But yeah, I guess Sovereign can still stay for right now. Maybe we need to combine the artifact and enchantment list into one list, remove all the redundancy, and see where we're actually at. Alright, so let's get rid of... Which of the Moors is just, like, up here, right? Because it's Jumpstart. Alright, and Viscera Seer. Like, it's a very efficient sack outlet, but we have others. The only upside to Viscera Seer is that it only costs 1 mana to get down to begin with. Like, the amount of payoff I'm getting from the actual sacrifice outlet itself and not from all of the other things we have around it is a little weak. So I don't mind cutting Viscera Seer. Also, let's be honest, we've gotten a few excuse me, few really good sacrifice outlets since Viscera Seer was printed, not the least of which is Yawgmoth. So, unless we really needed him to be cheap in order to have him come down and start ruining things sooner. Alright, let's start at the bottom. Work our way up, see if that helps me. When I sack a food, I get a tap treasure. The downside to this one, like, this one can also go infinite in the same way Camellia and Confectioner can, in that if we have Manufacture plus it, sacrificing the food gives us another food off the Manufacture. I forget if we ever found out if we got tapped food and tapped clues when this happens. Because I know we still get the tap treasure because it's making a tap treasure. So instead we make all three. Forget if we ever found out if the other two come into play tapped, which would be relevant for the food if I need to sacrifice it, you know, the traditional way instead of to something else. Yeah, it's basically a backup of the 1/4. The Pitiless Plunderer. Like, maybe we don't need it. It also just makes a food by tapping it, so that's kind of helpful. I do want to keep Atomize, unless I can afford to get rid of removal somehow. Which I might be able to do. Like I said, I might need to consolidate the creature and the non-creature removal list and just look at my removal package as a whole at this point. Because I might have too many removal spells total, and it's just strangling my room for the cards that actually make the deck work. Maybe we don't need the Scion. Scion still needs to be able to get through. It is really cool. It kills an artifact or enchantment each time it gets through, so basically it has to abyss the opponents while Ygra's in play, otherwise they're losing their guy anyway. And 5/5 is a huge body to have a consistent blocker for. Like, Yeah, some decks will very easily do that. They'll play a 6/6 or better because they just have tons of haymakers in their deck, or they happen to draw one of them in time. But assuming we can never kill it, since it's an artifact creature at that point in this scenario, yeah, maybe the Scion's still a bit too clunky. I do like it in the deck, but we have other ways to kill artifacts that don't let the opponents choose or chump block or anything, so. I keep the Coven, want to keep the Blight Mound. Judgment, Toxic Deluge. Yeah, there's gotta be. I might be overloaded a bit on removal spells. That might be the issue. So, how many ways do I actually have? I have the two treasure makers. They will actually make treasure specifically. We have the vending machine. Because it has to specifically create a food. We can't create creature tokens and have them be food on the battlefield. So we have the vending machine. We have Greta. We have experimental confectioner. Greta and confectioner only happen when they come into play, though. Yeah, it might actually be that manufacturer is not good enough in this deck. Like, we have plenty of ways to make tokens when we make other tokens, and they're less restrictive. But without the manufacturer, then the vending machine gets worse. Yeah, okay, maybe I don't need the vending machine either. Little sad about that. It does seem like it's a good fit for the deck, but oh well. Gonna do. We have to make cuts, and I think these are among the weaker cards now. That's true. Guillaume makes food also. Like, actually makes food tokens. It's probably still fine to lose these two. They're doing stuff when I'm already doing the thing. Even with Guillaume, that only brings it up to 3 food makers. So that's not exactly big over the top thing that I'm looking for. It's gonna just get everybody. Sometimes Greta's better because it's only one food. Sometimes Peregrine's better because I'm making tokens and therefore making tons of extra food anyway. Also, sometimes I want to sacrifice a bunch of things or to put the opponents on the back foot. Actually, I went to where we have Confectioner and Greta. Uh, Ladros. And Bastion is fine because it's an enchantment, so we don't lose it when we kill all the creatures. Really want to keep Trail Breadcrumbs. Does make a food once. The ones that enter to make a food once, though, like, that's not really pushing Vending Machine and Rector, Manufactor. Sorry, Academy Rector popped into my head. The dies get an enchantment. So I saw Academy and my brain went, Academy Rector. But yeah, it's Academy Manufactor. That's not doing enough. I make one food when it enters, and I have no way to, like, make it leave and come back repeatedly. The Dictate, Keeping the Blood Artist, Beast Within, Water, Creeping Corrosion, Revel. Possible we lose Exsanguinate. It is such a good finisher. But it might go for the same reason we cut, like, some of the other cards at the beginning, where it's like, yeah, they're still moving towards the same overall victory condition, but they're getting there in a manner that is less consistent with the deck strategy. Maybe it's possible we lose Diabolic Intent. We have a bunch of other tutors. It got to stay on the list because it's cheap, and sacrificing a creature is not an issue with this deck, but it's also not best card. Like, we do still need a creature to lose, and if we don't have expendable ones, if we have the ones that are waiting for the expendable creatures to show up, it still leaves us with Demonic and Vampiric and Survival as our main tutors. Yeah, okay. Talk myself into it. We don't. Diabolic Intent. We want to keep Pattern. Pattern is really good for getting the expensive things. Mostly like Razaketh, or, like I said, I probably tutor Tenacity before the Bloodlord, but it's still an option to go get the 7-drop. Have it be in play. Vein Ripper would be another really good one to go grab. And then just whatever thing would be really good on the board state, you know. If I have a ton of fodder, I can go get Hypnotist or Yawgmoth or something. Let's get these things. The Scion should be on one of the other lists too, so let's go grab it real quick. Yeah, it's on the Artifact and Enchantment Destruction section. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4 brings us down to 101. Would be nice to go below 100. But let's go down here and combine the removal packages and see how they overlap. Alright, so cut this. Cut that. Yeah, we'll cut all of them from down here. And move them all upwards. I'm cutting them one at a time so I can put each one in where it goes. I'm looking at the list the way it would be if I just had listed all of the removal spells as a single wall of text instead of 2 separate sections. Alright. So Innocence, Grey Pact, already on the list. Savra goes before Glissa. Nation goes after Glissa before Creeping Corrosion. Oops, not Savra again. Damnation. Beast Within. Alright, on the list, right. Dictate of Erebos. Goes... Why can I not remember where Manglehorn is from, specifically? What set are you from, Manglehorn? I feel like it's Amonkhet. Yep. It is. It is from Amonkhet. Okay. Didn't Assassin's Trophy be ahead of it then? Or was Assassin's Trophy not oh no, I'm thinking of Abrupt Decay. That's what the problem is. Alright, so Beast Within, Dictate of Erebos, Manglehorn, then Ravenous Chupacabra. Assassin's Trophy, Casualties of War. Liliana's also from the same set. Alright, clear all. Back down. I mean, both of these are going to be up there together anyway. Well, Toxic Deluge, Alpha Claw, and Atomize. Although both Alpha Claw and Atomize should have been up here already also. Alright. Retitle this thing Removal. And then we come back down here to Lily. Mortality Spear and Terra Sunder, yep. Both of them. Gathering. Fell. Toxic Deluge. Then Alpha Deathclaw and Atomize. Alright. So our removal package is currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We have 22 removal spells. So 22, 30, 40. So we have 42 spells in the sections that are not dedicated to what the deck is doing. We have room for 18 spells that are either other utility spells like our tutors, or whatchamacallit, are actually the things that are making the deck work. Might be why we're having a bit of an issue here. Alright, so we're going to have to cut some removal, but we're also at the hour mark, and like I said, I have to go into work super early today, so I have a few other things I need to take care of. So we'll pick back up we'll pick back up, like, next time here with the removal spells, and we'll figure it out. But that'll do it for me for right now, so thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.